Hi everyone. So if you're watching this video, you most likely purchased something from the shop that included a QR code. Whether it was a soft cover, pre-cut soft cover, or it was one of our book covers or our book cloth that you can then cover a book cover. This video is going to teach you how to sew in your signatures based on whichever cover you chose. This process works for both the soft cover and the hardcover option. It's the same thing. You're just dealing with a different type of cover. The other thing that you could have potentially purchased that also has this QR code is our pack of signature pages. This includes both reproduction pages as well as authentic vintage pages, and they are formatted to create the different signatures to then be sewn in the journal. So if you've purchased any one of these, you are in the right spot to be able to learn how to sew those papers into a journal and make a custom journal. And we're going to go over each step. So the first thing for this, I'm going to be using a soft cover journal here. I have already created my signatures from my signature page pack. My signature includes paper that is folded in half and then stacked on top of each other. So I'm going to do a 2 signature journal. You can do as many signatures as you want. We typically recommend that each signature is between 10 and 12 pages, depending on how thick of the paper that you're using. I'm using some coffee dyed paper that was included in my kit, along with some envelopes and some lined paper and some pattern paper, kind of just a bunch of different types that are included in my kit. But so depending on the papers that you chose, anywhere between 10 and 12 pages per signature. You can do as many signatures in your journal cover depending on how thick you want your spine to be. Okay, so I've got my signatures all ready. The other supplies that you're going to need are, you're going to need an awl. This is technically a Cricut weeding tool. An awl typically has like a straight edge to it, but as long as you've got something that is sharp and that can poke holes, that will work. You're going to need some type of a string to thread in your signatures. This is just a twine that I had laying around. You're going to need a ruler. I'm using our little cheat sheet that comes with our binding kit for measuring, but you're going to need a ruler of some sort. If you don't have anything, you can take like a piece of printer paper and create your own markings, and then I'll kind of tell you exactly what you're kind of looking for. The key is to make sure your whole patterns match on each of your signatures and your cover. So whatever you use is fine. That'll work. And then the last thing that you're going to need is an upholstery needle. And I have one sitting out here. An upholstery needle. These are needles with a bigger eyelet to be able to fit some thicker string through. So you'll have that as well. All right. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So whatever cover you're using, it's going to depend on how you want your cover to fold and how many signatures you're doing, but the process is the same. So what I'm going to do, because I'm using one of our soft cover, pre-cut soft cover journals, is I'm just going to go ahead and stack my signatures. I'm doing 2. And then I'm going to fold over my cover to kind of position of where I want those signatures to sit once they're sewn in. I am going to do this cute little flap on mine, and I'll probably do like some type of a snap closure. So I'm just kind of like picking where I want it all to sit. You also don't want a huge edge hanging over here, because then it's going to get bunched up in when you're trying to fold that over. So I've kind of lined that up, and I'm kind of holding those signatures in place. And then I'm looking to make sure that they're even and they're kind of straight, and holding that there. I'm going to just go ahead and pull that top signature off, and I'm going to use where this position is positioned with my guide. So I'm just going to go ahead and line that up where the signature is. And we are going to do a 3-hole sewing pattern And I'm just gonna mark a center marking. So I'm doing it here, and then there and there. And I'm just marking which hole pattern I'm gonna use, because I wanna make sure that the hole pattern that I'm putting on the cover is also gonna match the hole pattern that is going to go inside each of the signatures. So I just kind of starred those. If you're using a piece of paper, just kind of do that, mark where your pattern is, and so that you can repeat that whole pattern in your signatures. Then I'm going to kind of shift my ruler over a little bit, because we're doing 2 signatures. And it's typically about 1/4 of an inch over to allow space for your other signature. And we're just going to go and put hole pattern there. If you were doing more than 2 signatures, then you would continue to add your hole pattern there. You're going to go ahead and repeat that same process, opening up your signature to the center page. You're going to put your guide, and then you're going into the crease, mark that same hole pattern in the inside. Just like that. And repeat that process for every signature that you're going to be sewing into your journal. And I've got to find my center. There it is. And again, marking that same hole pattern, just like that. All right, now that you have everything marked, put my pen away. You're gonna take your awl and you're gonna pre-punch your holes. This just makes it easier when you're threading in. You're not trying to punch through a ton of paper. Just like that. And for the signatures, you're punching right through the crease like that. Same thing here. You can use a binder clip to clip that if you're worried that your pages will shift, or maybe your dexterity isn't all that great. We're just gonna pre-punch those. We're also gonna pre-punch your hole pattern on your cover, just like that, and like that. Okay, now that you have all of your holes pre-punched and marked, we're gonna go ahead and sew in our signatures. I have already pre-cut some of our string. The length of your string for this is going to depend on the size that you're doing. Obviously, you want a longer string if you're doing a larger journal. This is a standard size journal that we're doing. It's going to be, when it's all said and done, it's going to be 9x6 with a flap that covers it. So I bet my string is probably about 20 inches or 24 inches. So if that just gives you a general idea. So you're going to take your string and you're going to thread your upholstery needle, and it slipped underneath there. You're going to thread your upholstery needle, and you just want enough tail so that it doesn't slip out of your needle as you're sewing it in. You don't have to do a knot or tie anything, just kind of thread it in, giving you a little bit of wiggle room there. You're going to open up your first signature, and this process is going to be repeated the same for every single signature that you have. So we're doing 2 in this case, but if you have 5 or 3 or however many, you're going to do the same process for each one. So I'm holding on to my signature. Again, you can binder clip this if you're worried if the pages are going to shift on you. But then you're just going to take your needle and you're going to go down through the center. You're going to pull that through, but you're going to leave a little bit of slack here so that you can hang on to that tail with your thumb to make sure it doesn't go all the way through. This part can get a little wonky just because you're doing it through 2 different things. So you're holding onto your signature and then you're also holding it onto your cover. So because we went down through the center, we're going to go down through the center on your cover. We're going to go up through the top on your cover. So you've got, kind of turn it over, and you're making sure that you're using the same hole pattern vertically. So you're going up through the cover, So we went up through the cover. We're gonna go up through your signature. So everything that you're doing in your signature and in your cover, you repeat for the other thing. And this is getting kind of the pages shifted on me. So up through the top, and then we're gonna go back down through the center. When you go back down through the center, you wanna make sure your needle doesn't catch on the thread that you're using. Otherwise, you're gonna get all bunched up in the center. So I kind of just pull that thread a little tight and then make sure my needle is going on the outside of that. And then again, same thing through your cover, down through the center, avoiding that existing thread there. And then you're gonna go up through the bottom and up through the bottom of your signature. Then I'm gonna go ahead and remove my needle, and we're just gonna tug on all of these threads and kind of pull them tight. And then I'm gonna check, make sure we don't have any loops bunching here. Make sure everything's tight on the cover part. And everything looks good. So you should have a string coming through the center and a string coming through the bottom. You're gonna take your bottom string and you're going to go underneath this loop here, just like that. And then those are gonna meet now in the middle. Good, and then you're just gonna do a double knot and tie that. You can do a dab of glue on your knot if you want. It kind of depends on the thread that you're using, if you feel like it's not gonna be tight enough. And then you have these strings. You can cut them short. You can leave them hanging and add beads if you want. You can cut them really close to the knot, and in that case, you definitely wanna do a dab of glue no matter what string you're using. In this case, I'm just gonna trim them up a little bit so they match. And then I'm going to repeat that same process with the next signature. Because you already have this sewn in, sometimes it gets in the way when you're sewing in your next signature. So I'm just going to go ahead and use a binder clip and clip that out of my way. And then I'm going to quickly sew in the signature using that same process. Okay, so now that you have your two signatures sewn in, this is what the spine looks like. That's your spine pattern. And you have everything sewn in, and then I'm probably just gonna do a snap closure to do my closure. You can do a grommet with a tie. You can do a bunch of different things for your closure depending on what your preference is. We have a lot of different ideas saved on our Pinterest page. If you need some inspiration for your closure, that's there as well. If you make a mistake and possibly sew in your signatures upside down, or maybe you don't love the pages you chose and you want to switch out the pages, just snip those strings and then you can go ahead and re-sew them in to fix whatever you've got going on. So once your journal, and this is the same process of when you're doing a hardcover. Once your journal is done, then you go ahead and either sketch in it, write in it, or do whatever you want to do in your journal. We have a number of different things, which I will link in the description. We have scrap paper packs. We have vintage lace packs. We have cute ephemera. This is authentic vintage ephemera, like old letters and trading cards and stuff that you can use, photos that you can use decorating your journal. We have sewn fabric scraps. We also sell ephemera kits by subject matter. We have these paper packs, and these include like tabs and tags along the same subject matter. And then we also have ephemera kits that have a variety of different things based on subject matter. And lastly, we have vintage book pages that are really good. You get like end papers and book pages and index pages, and they're all different sizes and patinas, and they're really nice to work with when you're making pockets and that type of thing. So check out those additional links in the description. And then I hope you had a great time, and you can reuse this same tutorial on multiple journals that you make. And thanks for visiting.